You think you know who holds the power. Think again. Captain Richard Sterling was a legend at Horizon Airways, a man with 30 years of flight time and an ego to match. He thought he could bully a 19-year-old black girl out of first class just because he didn't like the look of her. He thought she was nobody. He was wrong. Dead wrong. Minutes after he kicked her off the tarmac, every single screen in the airport turned red. This isn't just a story about racism. It's a story about what happens when you mess with the wrong person. This is how one teenager grounded an entire airline. The air inside the cabin of Flight 409 was stale, smelling faintly of recycled coffee and expensive leather. It was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the jewel of the Horizon Airways fleet, currently docked at Gate B12 at JFK International Airport. Outside, the New York rain was hammering against the fuselage, but inside first class, everything was hushed and golden. Maya distinctively adjusted the noise-cancelling headphones over her ears. She was 19, dressed in an oversized vintage hoodie, distressed jeans, and worn-out Converse sneakers. To the untrained eye, she looked like a college student who had perhaps wandered into the wrong section of the plane. To the trained eye, however, the Patek Philippe watch on her wrist, worth more than the captain's car, might have been a clue. But nobody was looking that closely. She tapped her fingers on the armrest of seat 1A. She was nervous. Not about the flight she'd flown more miles in her short life than most pilots, but about the meeting waiting for her in London. "Excuse me." The voice was clipped professional, but laced with an icy undercurrent. Maya didn't hear it at first. She was scrolling through a complex PDF on her tablet, a document titled Project Ether, Phase 4 Integrity Report. "Miss..." The voice came louder this time. Maya pulled her headphones down around her neck and looked up. Standing over her was a flight attendant with a tight bun and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her name tag read, Patricia. "Yes," Maya asked, her voice soft. "I think there's been a mistake," Patricia said, her eyes flickering to Maya's hoodie and then to the boarding pass resting on the tray table. "This is first class. Economy boarding is through the rear entrance, or you can find your seat in rows 20 through 55. Maya blinked. She picked up her boarding pass and held it out. "I know. Seat 1A. This is my seat." Patricia didn't take the pass. She just stared at it, her nose wrinkling slightly as if she smelled something unpleasant. "May I see your ticket, the physical one, or the app?" Maya sighed, unlocking her phone. She pulled up the QR code. "Here. Maya Vance. Seat 1A. Paid in full." Patricia leaned in, squinting at the screen, as if looking for a forgery. The silence stretched uncomfortable and heavy. A businessman in seat 1C, a man with a thick neck and a thicker Rolex, scoffed audibly. "Come on, let's get this moving. Some of us have meetings." "One moment, sir," Patricia said, her voice turning syrupy sweet for the businessman, before snapping back to cold steel for Maya. "The system must be glitching. There's no way. Look, I'm going to need you to grab your bag and step into the galley. We need to verify this with the gate agent." "I'm not going anywhere," Maya said, her heart rate starting to climb. She knew this tone. She had heard it in high-end boutiques, in hotel lobbies, and even at her own university. It was the tone of "you don't belong here." I scanned in at the gate. The light turned green. I'm in my assigned seat. "Listen, sweetheart." Patricia snapped the professional mask, slipping. "We have high-value frequent flyers waiting for upgrades. If you used some employee pass or got a glitch fare, we're going to find out. Now move before I call security." Maya sat up straighter. Call them. I paid $12,000 for this seat. The businessman in 1C laughed. 12 grand, kid. You probably don't even have $12 for the Wi-Fi. Before Patricia could respond, the cockpit door opened. Captain Richard Sterling stepped out. He was a man who looked like he had been cast in a movie about pilots. Silver hair, square jaw, gold stripes gleaming on his shoulders. He radiated authority, the kind that had gone unchecked for decades. He took in the scene instantly, his lead flight attendant looking flustered, the wealthy white passengers looking annoyed, and the young black girl in a hoodie sitting in the most expensive seat on the plane. What is the problem here, Patricia? Sterling's voice was a deep baritone that demanded silence. Captain, Patricia said, relief washing over her. This passenger refuses to vacate seat 1A. I suspect a ticketing error or... Well, she clearly isn't on the manifest for this cabin. Sterling turned his gaze to Maya. It wasn't a look of curiosity. It was a look of immediate, bored dismissal. Miss, Sterling said, stepping closer, I don't know how you got on board, but you are delaying my pushback. Grab your things. Economy is full, so you'll be taking the next flight. I have a ticket, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly but holding firm. I am not moving. Sterling's eyes narrowed. He leaned down, placing a hand on the back of her seat, encroaching on her space. I am the captain of this vessel. Under FAA regulations, I have the final say on who flies on my plane. I don't like disturbances. And you. Your attire, your attitude. You are a disturbance. My attire? Maya asked, incredulous. The guy in 2B is wearing sweatpants. That is Mr. Henderson, Sterling said, as if that explained everything. He is a Diamond Medallion member. You are a security risk. A security risk, Maya repeated, her voice rising. Because I'm black and wearing a hoodie. Is that the risk, Captain? The cabin went dead silent. Sterling's face turned a dangerous shade of red. He stood up to his full height. Get off my plane, now, or I will have you dragged off in handcuffs. Maya looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the arrogance, the prejudice baked into his bones, the absolute certainty that he could crush her without consequence. She felt a cold calm settle over her. You really don't want to do this, Captain Sterling, she said quietly. Watch me, he spat. He keyed his radio. Tower, this is Horizon 409, requesting airport police to the gate. We have a non-compliant passenger refusing to deplane. The arrival of the airport police was swift and humiliating. 2 officers, breathless and imposing, marched down the jet bridge and into the first-class cabin. That's her, Captain Sterling said, pointing a finger at Maya, as if she were a fugitive. She's trespassing in the premium cabin and behaving aggressively. I want her removed and banned from the airline. The first officer, a burly man with Officer Miller on his badge, approached Maya. Ma'am, you need to come with us. I have a valid ticket, Maya said, holding up her phone again. This man is kicking me off because he doesn't like the way I look. Ma'am, the captain has the right to refuse transport, Miller said, his hand resting near his belt. We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. If you resist, you will be charged with federal trespassing and interference with a flight crew. Maya looked around the cabin. A few passengers had their phones out recording. Most just looked away, unwilling to get involved. The businessman in 1C was smirking already, typing on his laptop, dismissing her entirely. She realized then that arguing was pointless. Logic wouldn't work here. Power would. And right now on this plane, Sterling held the power. But off the plane... That was a different story. Fine, Maya said. She stood up, smoothing down her hoodie. She grabbed her backpack and her tablet. And check her bag, Sterling added, crossing his arms. She was looking at some schematics on her tablet, probably downloading proprietary movies or something. Maya stopped in the aisle. She turned to look at Sterling one last time. Schematics? You mean the Ether Phase 4 navigation protocols? Sterling frowned. What did you say? You're flying a 7879 tail number N8098Z, Maya said, reciting the numbers from memory. It was retrofitted last month with the new Horizon Link avionics system, the system that's currently pending a firmware update. Sterling laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Did you read that on Wikipedia, little girl? Get her out of here. Officer Miller grabbed Maya's arm. Let's go. They marched her out. It was the longest walk of her life. She had to pass through the galley, past the sneering face of Patricia, and then out onto the jet bridge. The cold, damp air of the terminal hit her face. As she walked up the ramp, she could hear the heavy thud of the aircraft door closing behind her, the sound of a vault locking. Inside the terminal, the gate area was crowded. People stared as the police escorted her to the counter. I need to see your ID, Miller said, releasing her arm but blocking her path. Maya reached into her bag, but instead of pulling out a driver's license, she pulled out a sleek black leather folio. She opened it. Inside wasn't a standard ID. It was a heavy metallic badge with a holographic chip embedded in the center, and a lanyard that was color-coded red and gold. Beneath the badge, embossed in silver letters, was her title. Maya Vance, Senior Auditor and Director of Operations, Horizon Global Holdings. Officer Miller looked at the badge, then up at Maya, then back at the badge. His face went pale. Wait, Horizon Global. You work for the airline. I don't just work for it, Maya said, her voice dropping an octave, losing the softness of the teenager and gaining the steel of an executive. My father was Marcus Vance. He founded this company. He died 3 weeks ago. I own 51% of the voting stock. The gate agent, a woman named Sarah, who had been watching the scene with a bored expression, suddenly dropped her scanner. It clattered loudly on the floor. Vance, Sarah whispered. The heiress. I prefer chairwoman, Maya corrected. She looked at Miller. Officer, am I under arrest? No, ma'am, Miller stammered, taking a step back. The captain said, We didn't know. You didn't ask, Maya said. She turned to the gate agent. Sarah, is it? Yes, Miss Vance, Sarah squeaked. Give me the terminal microphone, Maya ordered. The mic. Now. Where Sarah scrambled to hand over the handset used for boarding announcements. Maya took it. She didn't look at the passengers waiting at the gate. She looked out the massive glass windows at the Boeing 787 pushing back from the gate. Captain Sterling was in that cockpit, taxiing toward the runway, thinking he had won. Thinking he had just taken out the trash. Maya pressed the button on the handset, but she didn't speak to the passengers. She turned to Sarah. Get me the tower frequency patch. I want to speak directly to Flight 409. I can't do that, ma'am. Only ATC can. Maya pulled out her phone and dialed a number. This is Maya Vance. Authorization code Alpha Zulu 99. Patch me into the JFK Tower, Chief. Immediately. She waited 3 seconds. Then she spoke into her phone, her eyes locked on the moving plane. Tower, this is Horizon Director Maya Vance. Revoke takeoff clearance for Flight 409 immediately. There was a crackle on the other end. Director Vance, we have 409 queued for departure. What is the emergency? The emergency, Maya said, her voice echoing slightly in the quiet gate area. is that the pilot in command has just demonstrated a severe lack of judgment that compromises the safety of my aircraft. Furthermore, that aircraft is operating with a critical software dependency that I am personally holding the encryption key for. If he takes off, his navigation displays will go black in 10 minutes. "Copy that, Director," the tower chief said, sounding terrified. Maya watched through the glass. The massive plane braked hard on the taxiway, the nose dipping slightly. "Now," Maya said to the tower chief, "tell Captain Sterling to return to the gate, and tell him to keep the engines running. I want the APU off. I want him to sweat." "And Director?" the tower chief asked. "Is that all?" Maya smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. "No. Ground every Horizon flight out of JFK. Nobody moves until I review the personnel files of every single captain on duty. I'm shutting it down. Copy. Grounding all flights." Outside, the lights on the runway seemed to flicker. The massive 787 sat motionless on the tarmac, looking suddenly like a very large, very expensive toy that had just been unplugged. Maya lowered the phone. She turned to Officer Miller, who looked like he wanted to vanish. "Officer," she said, "you might want to call your supervisor and tell him to bring the handcuffs back, but not for me." Inside the cockpit of Flight 409, the silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the avionics cooling fans and the rhythmic thumping of the windshield wipers against the glass. Captain Richard Sterling stared at the radio panel as if it had just spoken in tongues. "Tower, repeat instructions." Sterling barked, his hand gripping the thrust levers so hard his knuckles were white. "Did you say return to gate?" "We are number 1 for departure. We have a slot time." The voice from the tower crackled back, stripped of the usual camaraderie pilots shared with controllers. It was cold, formal, and terrifyingly precise. "Horizon 409, cancel takeoff clearance immediately. Exit runway via taxiway Kilo. Return to gate B12. Expect a hold position on the ramp." "Why?" Sterling demanded, his face flushing. "Is it weather mechanical, administrative order, Captain? Direct from Horizon Operations. You are grounded." Sterling slammed his hand against the glare shield. "Operations I am. Operations, I'm the senior check airman for this hub. Get me the chief pilot on the line." Beside him, First Officer Dan Evans, a younger man with a nervous disposition, was looking at the Flight Management Computer FMC. His face had drained of all color. "Captain," Evans whispered, "look at the ACRS message." "Not now, Dan." "Rick, look at the screen." Sterling snapped his head toward the center console, the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system. The text messaging system for planes was flashing a priority message. Usually these were about weather updates or gate changes. This one was different. The text was blinking in red. "Sender, HH, Director, Ops. A. Youth Vance, MSG Command. Authority revoked. Return to block. Do not power down. Await security boarding." Vance. Sterling squinted at the name. Who the hell is Vance? Evans swallowed hard. "Rick. Marcus Vance was the CEO. He died last month. This authorization code, Alpha Zulu 99. That's the chairman's override code. Nobody uses that unless the company is under attack or some hacker kid messed with the system." Sterling growled. "That girl, the one in the hoodie. She was messing with a tablet. She hacked the network." "Rick, she was 19, Evans said reasonably. "Hacking a secure ACARS data link from a passenger seat. That's impossible. and the tower is backing it up. I'm not turning this bird around for a prank, Sterling muttered. He keyed the mic again. Tower Horizon 409. We suspect a security breach in your network. I am exercising Captain's emergency authority to continue departure. Horizon 409, stop! The tower controller screamed, breaking all protocol. If you cross that hold short line, you will be intercepted. Look out your window, Captain. Sterling looked to his left. The entire airport was freezing. It wasn't just him. On the parallel taxiway, a Horizon 737 was braking hard. In the distance, a Horizon Airbus A3221 that had just pushed back was being towed back in. The chaos was spreading like a virus. Every tail fin with the Horizon logo was stopping dead in its tracks. The Delta and American flights were moving around them, weaving through the sudden graveyard of Horizon planes. My God, Evans whispered. It's a global stop. Someone grounded the whole fleet. Back in the cabin, the mood had shifted from annoyance to open hostility. Patricia, the lead flight attendant, picked up the interphone to the cockpit. Her hands were shaking. Captain, the passengers are getting unruly. Mr. Henderson in 1C is threatening to sue. He says he sees his luggage being unloaded on the tarmac. What is going on? Tell them to sit down and shut up, Sterling roared over the line. We're going back to the gate to deal with a technical glitch. He spun the nose wheel tiller, swinging the massive 787 around. The humiliation burned in his gut like acid. He had flown for 30 years. He was a god in this ecosystem, and now he was being recalled like a naughty schoolboy. When we get back there, Sterling hissed to his first officer, I'm going to find that girl, and I'm going to make sure she goes to federal prison for cyber-terrorism. She thinks she can play games with my plane. She's about to find out what the Patriot Act looks like. Evans didn't reply. He was looking out of the window as they approached Gate B12. The jet bridge was already moving to meet them. But it wasn't empty. Through the rain-streaked glass, Evans could see the terminal window. It was lined with people. And standing right at the end of the jet bridge, visible through the porthole, was a phalanx of dark suits. Rick, Evans said quietly, I don't think those are the cops. I don't care who they are, Sterling said, setting the parking brake with a violent yank. They're on my turf now. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Usually this was the cue for the chaotic shuffle of passengers standing up. But today the cabin remained eerily quiet. The tension was so thick it felt like the air pressure had dropped. Captain Sterling didn't wait for the cabin crew to disarm the doors. He threw open the cockpit door and stormed into the galley. Patricia was pressing herself against the galley wall, looking terrified. Open it, Sterling ordered. Captain Protocol says, open the damn door, Patricia. She tapped the code and pulled the lever. The massive door swung outward and locked into place against the jet bridge. Sterling stepped forward, his chest puffed out, ready to scream at the station manager, the police, or whoever had dared to interrupt his flight. Who authorized this? He bellowed, his voice echoing in the metal tunnel of the jet bridge. I want the name of the incompetent bureaucrat who... He stopped. Blocking his path were 4 men in impeccable charcoal suits. They were large, silent, and wore earpieces. They weren't airport security. They were executive protection. And standing in the middle of them, arms crossed, looking bored, was the girl in the hoodie. Maya Vance. She hadn't changed clothes. She was still wearing the distressed jeans and the oversized sweatshirt. But the dynamic had shifted tectonically. Before she had been a passenger in his world. Now he was a trespasser in hers. You, Sterling snarled, stepping forward. One of the bodyguards instantly shifted, blocking him with a shoulder of solid muscle. Sterling bounced off. "You little criminal! You hacked the tower! Do you have any idea how much money you just cost this airline?" Maya looked at him. She didn't blink. She slowly uncrossed her arms and checked her Patek Philippe watch. "Approximately $4 million in fuel delay fees and crew timeouts," she said calmly. "And counting. It's a lot of money to burn, Captain, but fortunately I can afford it. The question is, can you—" "What are you talking about?" Sterling spat. "Officer." He looked around for the police. Officer Miller was there, standing way back near the terminal door, looking like he wanted to be invisible. "Arrest her." She admitted it. "Captain Sterling." A new voice cut in. A man in a sharp navy suit stepped out from behind the bodyguards. He was older, holding a briefcase. Sterling recognized him instantly. It was Jonathan Prendergast, the chief legal officer for Horizon Airways, a man who usually only dealt with billion-dollar mergers. "Mr. Prendergast." Sterling's anger faltered for a second, replaced by confusion. Thank God. "This girl—" "Be quiet, Richard," Prendergast said. His tone wasn't angry. It was tired. "You are addressing the chairwoman of the board and the majority shareholder of Horizon Global." Sterling froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at the girl, the hood rat he had kicked off, the security risk. "Chairwoman," he whispered. That's impossible. Marcus Vance didn't have any children involved in the business. Marcus Vance had a daughter he sent to MIT and Stanford under a pseudonym, so she could learn the business without people like you kissing her ass, Maya said sharply. She took a step forward, the bodyguards parting for her. She walked right up to Sterling. She was a foot shorter than him, but in that moment, she towered over him. "You said I was a security risk," Maya said. "You said I didn't belong in seat 1A. You implied I couldn't possibly afford the ticket." I was following protocol," Sterling stammered, the blood draining from his face. "You didn't have physical identification. Your attire was suspicious." "My attire?" Maya laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Steve Jobs wore turtlenecks. Mark Zuckerberg wears T-shirts. You judged me because I'm young, I'm black, and I didn't look scared of you. That's not protocol, Richard. That's bias. And bias is a liability I cannot afford in my cockpit." "Now wait a minute." Sterling tried to rally his ego, flaring up one last time. "I have 30 years of flawless service. You can't just come here and disrupt an entire airline because your feelings got hurt. The union will have a field day with this. You can't touch me." Maya smiled. It was the smile of a wolf looking at a trapped rabbit. "Actually, I can," she said. She turned to Prendergast. "Jonathan, give me the file." The lawyer handed her a thin blue folder. Maya opened it. "You mentioned the union," Maya said, reading from the page. "The Pilots' Union Contract, Article 14, Section 3, immediate termination for cause is justified in cases of gross negligence, endangerment of passengers, or willful violation of federal aviation standards." "I didn't violate any standards," Sterling shouted. "Didn't you?" Maya looked up. "I told you on the plane. The avionics update, Phase 4. She turned to the passengers who were now crowding the aircraft door, listening with rapt attention. Mr. Henderson, the rude businessman, was right at the front, his mouth hanging open. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya announced, her voice projecting clear and strong, "Captain Sterling was about to fly this aircraft with a known software mismatch in the flight management system, a mismatch that I personally flagged in the system 3 hours ago. If he had taken off your navigation screens, would have frozen over the Atlantic Ocean." A gasp rippled through the crowd. He didn't check the logbook. Maya continued, locking eyes with Sterling. He didn't check the ACARS warnings. He was too busy bullying a teenager to do his pre-flight checks. That is gross negligence. She slapped the folder shut. The sound was like a gunshot. "Captain Richard Sterling," Maya said. "You are relieved of command. You are fired. And since you threatened to have me arrested for trespassing," she gestured to Officer Miller. "Officer, I'd like to press charges against Mr. Sterling for unlawful imprisonment and endangerment. Please remove him from my airport." "Now wait," Sterling screamed, backing up as the police moved in. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I'm a senior captain." "Not anymore," Maya said coldly. "Now you're just a passenger, and I believe economy is full." As the officers grabbed Sterling's arms the same way they had grabbed hers, he looked wildly at the passengers for support. But there was no sympathy. Mr. Henderson, the man in 1C, looked at Maya, then at Sterling. "Get him out of here," Henderson muttered. "I want to go home." As Sterling was dragged up the jet bridge, kicking and shouting, Maya didn't watch him go. She turned to the flight attendant, Patricia, who was trembling in the galley doorway. "Patricia," Maya said softly. "Miss Vance, I didn't know." Patricia sobbed. "Save it," Maya said. "You have two choices. You can hand over your wings right now and walk away. Or you can get back on that intercom, apologize to every single person on this plane for the delay, and serve them champagne until we get a new flight crew. What's it going to be?" Patricia swallowed. "Champagne. I'll get the champagne." "Good choice," Maya said. She turned back to the jet bridge window. The rain had stopped, but the storm was just beginning. She had fired a captain, but she had grounded a fleet to do it. The board of directors would be calling in 5 minutes. The media would be here in 10. She pulled out her phone. She hit record. "Time to tell the world why no planes are moving," she whispered to herself. Maya held her phone steady. She didn't use a filter. The background was the real-time chaos of JFK's Terminal 4 passengers milling angrily around service desks, departure screens glowing with a sea of red, cancelled text. She hit record. "My name is Maya Vance," she began, looking directly into the lens. Her voice was calm, surgical. "Until 3 weeks ago, I was a sophomore at Stanford. Today, I am the chairwoman and majority owner of Horizon Global." She paused, letting that sink in for the digital void. "An hour ago, I was kicked off Horizon Flight 409. The Captain Richard Sterling decided that a young black woman in a hoodie didn't look like she belonged in seat 1A. He didn't check my ticket. He didn't check my ID. He judged me, he dismissed me, and he called the police on me." She shifted the camera slightly to show the massive Boeing 787 still parked at the gate behind the glass. Captain Sterling was so focused on profiling me that he neglected to perform mandatory pre-flight checks on a critical avionics update. He was willing to fly 300 people across the Atlantic with a compromised navigation system, all because his ego couldn't handle being questioned by someone who looked like me. Maya took a deep breath. "So I did the only thing I could to ensure the safety of that flight. I grounded it. And then I grounded every single Horizon aircraft worldwide. I grounded them because I need to know how many other Captain Sterlings are sitting in our cockpits, how many other pilots are putting prejudice before protocol. This is going to cost my company millions today. It's going to inconvenience thousands of you, and for that I sincerely apologize. But Horizon Airways will not fly again until I am certain that every person wearing our uniform understands that safety and respect are not optional. They are the price of entry." If you can't pay that price, you don't fly with us. The old Horizon died today. We're building something better." She hit stop. Upload. She posted it to her personal Twitter account, which had maybe 200 followers, mostly college friends. Then she pocketed her phone and turned back to the gate area. The dynamic had shifted so violently, it gave her whiplash. The gate lice, the people who hover around the boarding door, had parted like the Red Sea. Passengers who had been rolling their eyes at her 20 minutes ago were now looking at her with a mixture of awe and terror. Miss Henderson, the man in seat 1C, who had joked about her not affording Wi-Fi, practically tripped over his own expensive loafers trying to get to her. "Ms. Vance," Henderson spluttered, his face a mask of sweaty obsequiousness. I just wanted to apologize for my earlier comments. I had no idea. Stress of travel, you know. If there's anything I can do, perhaps a business partnership down the line. My firm handles high net worth portfolios." Maya stopped. She looked at him. Really looked at him just as she had looked at Sterling. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice flat. "You were happy to watch me get arrested because I was inconveniencing your schedule. Now that you know I have money, you want to be my friend. That's not a partnership. That's parasitism. Enjoy the champagne in first class. I believe we'll have a new crew for you in an hour." She walked past him, leaving him sputtering in her wake. Patricia, the flight attendant, was already back on board, looking pale as a ghost, frantically popping corks on bottles of Dom Perignon, trying to buy back the goodwill of the cabin one glass at a time. Maya didn't reboard. She had work to do. Prendergast, the lawyer, was on his phone, looking frantic. "Yes, I know the stock is in freefall. Stop yelling at me, Preston." Prendergast covered the microphone. "Maya, Ms. Vance, the board of directors has convened an emergency session via video link. They are screaming for blood. They want you in the conference room upstairs, now." "Let them scream," Maya said, checking the view count on her video. It had been up for 3 minutes. It already had 50,000 views. The hashtags #HorizonGrounded and #MayaVance were trending worldwide. "They're saying you're mentally unstable," Prendergast hissed. "They're talking about a vote of no confidence. They want to file an injunction to strip you of executive power before you bankrupt the company." Maya looked up from her phone. The terminal around them was a madhouse of angry travelers, news crews with cameras on shoulders running toward Gate B12, and security guards trying to maintain order. She had caused this, and she felt a strange, terrifying calm. "They want a meeting," Maya said. "Fine. Let's go upstairs. It's time I met my father's friends." The conference room overlooking the tarmac was soundproofed, air-conditioned, and reeked of old money and fear. On the massive screen at the end of the polished mahogany table were the faces of 12 men and 1 woman, the board of directors of Horizon Global. They were in offices in London, Dubai, Hong Kong, and Geneva, and they were all furious. When Maya walked in, still in her hoodie and jeans, flanked by a nervous-looking Prendergast, the room went silent. The man at the center of the screen, Preston Caldwell, had a vein throbbing visibly in his temple. He was 70 years old, had known Maya's father for 40 years, and looked at Maya as if she were a stain on the carpet. "Sit down," Caldwell barked. Maya didn't sit. She walked to the head of the table, the spot usually reserved for the chairman. She placed her hands on the leather back of the chair and leaned forward, staring at the camera. "I prefer to stand," she said. "This is incredible," Caldwell sputtered. "Do you have any conception of what you've done? Horizon stock is down 12% in an hour. We are hemorrhaging cash every second those planes sit on the tarmac. The FAA is calling. The Department of Transportation is calling. You have created a national crisis." "I prevented a crash, Preston," Maya said calmly. "You fired a senior captain with 30 years of experience based on a whim," another board member shouted from Dubai. "Sterling is a good man, a company man. Sterling is a liability," Maya corrected. "He's a relic of a culture that you enabled, a culture that says seniority outweighs safety, and that certain people don't belong in first class." "Oh, spare us the woke crusade," Caldwell sneered. "This isn't a university sociology class, little girl. This is a Fortune 500 company. Your father must be rolling in his grave. He built this empire, and you're torching it because your feelings got hurt." The other board members murmured their agreement. The condescension was thick enough to choke on. They didn't see a majority shareholder. They saw a rebellious teenager playing with Daddy's credit card. "We have a motion on the table," Caldwell announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "To declare you mentally unfit to lead due to grief and irrational behavior. We are invoking the emergency bylaws to transfer executive control to the board until a competency hearing can be held. We're taking the keys away, Maya, before you crash the car." Prendergast stepped forward, sweating. "Mr. Caldwell, as General Counsel, I must advise you that Ms. Vance holds 51% of the voting stock. You cannot remove her without her consent unless you have concrete proof of—" "We have a grounded airline," Caldwell roared. "That's proof of insanity." Maya laughed. It was a quiet laugh, but in that tense room, it sounded like thunder. She pulled her phone out of her pocket and placed it flat on the table in front of her. "You guys are so predictable," she said, shaking her head. "You think power is about bylaws and boardroom votes. You think you can bully me the way Sterling tried to bully me. You think I'm alone." She tapped the phone screen, waking it up. 10 million views, she said softly. Caldwell frowned. "What? My video statement?" Maya said. "It's been up for an hour. 10 million views across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. CNN is running it non-stop. The BBC just called Prendergast's office requesting an interview." She looked up at the screen, her eyes hard. "The world knows what Sterling did, and they know that I stopped him. They aren't talking about the delays anymore, Preston. They're talking about the hero owner who stood up to systemic rot in her own company." She leaned closer to the camera. "If you try to remove me today, if you try to frame this as me being crazy, I will go live in 5 minutes. I will tell those 10 million people that the board of directors sides with the racist pilot who almost crashed a plane. I will tell them that you care more about the stock price today than the safety of your passengers tomorrow. I will burn your reputations to the ground, and I will use my 51% to vote every single one of you off this board at the next shareholder meeting." Silence fell over the virtual room. The murmurs of agreement stopped dead. Caldwell stared at her. The vein in his temple pulsed harder. He looked at the other faces on the screen. He saw fear. They were rich men, powerful men, but they were terrified of public opinion. They were terrified of being on the wrong side of a viral tidal wave. "You wouldn't dare," Caldwell whispered. "Try me," Maya said. "My father built this company on guts. You guys are just managing the decline. I'm here to save it. But I'm doing it my way." She stood up straight. "Here is the new motion on the table. We lift the grounding in 2 hours, once every captain has electronically signed a new zero-tolerance policy regarding discrimination and pre-flight protocols. Secondly, I want a press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning. I will speak. Preston, you will stand next to me and nod. And thirdly," she pointed a finger directly at Caldwell's face on the screen, "Sterling doesn't get a severance package. Fight me on that, and I release his personnel file to the press, the one that Prendergast just handed me, the one with the 3 previous sexual harassment complaints that you swept under the rug in 08, 12, and 19. Prendergast gasped quietly. He hadn't realized she'd read that far into the files yet. Caldwell looked like he was having a stroke. His face turned a mottled purple. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then slumped back in his chair. Defeated. "Fine," Caldwell croaked. "Do it your way. Just get the damn planes in the air." Maya picked up her phone. "Prendergast, draft the press release. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Meeting adjourned." She turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving the masters of the universe staring blankly at a closed door. She was exhausted. She was terrified. But as she walked back out into the humming noise of the terminal, she smiled. The hardest part was over. Now she just had to fly the plane. The reboot of a global airline does not happen with the flip of a switch. It happens in a cascade of noise. 30 minutes after Maya walked out of the boardroom, the silence of JFK's Terminal 4 was broken by the first chime of the public address system. The screens, which had been bleeding red with cancellations, flickered. The text didn't go back to normal immediately, but the ground stop banner vanished, replaced by resuming operations. Maya stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Horizon Club lounge. It was empty save for her. She watched as the ground crew below, little figures in neon vests, began to scramble around the landing gear of the Boeing 787. The fuel trucks returned. The baggage carts started moving. It was a mechanical ballet, and for the first time in her life, she felt the immense weight of the machinery. She wasn't just watching planes. She was watching her father's legacy coming back to life, breathing through the jet fuel fumes. "Ms. Vance," Maya turned. It was Prendergast. The lawyer looked like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. He was holding a tablet. "The fleet is moving," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. "We have signatures from 98% of the active captains on the new protocol agreement. The other 2%, well, we're accepting their resignations as we speak." "Good," Maya said. She looked down at the tarmac. "What about the passengers of Flight 409? "We found a relief crew. Captain Davies is taking command. He's a bit younger, quite diverse. He's doing the pre-flight checks now. We offered every passenger a full refund plus a travel voucher for future travel. Most of them are reboarding. They want to be part of the story." "And Sterling?" Maya asked. She didn't say the name with anger anymore. Just a cold curiosity. Prendergast grimaced. "He's downstairs. The Port Authority police are escorting him to the curb. He's demanding to speak to you. He says it's a misunderstanding." Maya checked her watch. "I have 10 minutes before I have to meet the PR team. Let's go say goodbye." The curb outside Terminal 4 was a flashing strobe light of police cruisers and news vans. The story had broken wide open. The video of Maya's speech was playing on the portable screens of the reporters camped out by the sliding doors. Captain Richard Sterling was standing by a concrete pillar, flanked by Officer Miller and 2 other cops. He was no longer wearing his jacket. His tie was undone. The gold stripes on his epaulets, once the source of all his power, now looked like costume jewelry. He looked small, deflated. When the automatic doors slid open and Maya stepped out, the press shouted her name. "Ms. Vance! Ms. Vance! Is it true you fired him personally?" "Maya, Over here." Maya ignored them. She walked straight to Sterling. The bodyguards held the press back, creating a small bubble of silence in the chaos. Sterling looked up. His eyes were rimmed with red. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, clawing fear. "Maya," he started, his voice cracking. "Ms. Vance, please, you have to stop this. My pension, my reputation. I have a mortgage. I have a boat. You can't just destroy a man's life over one mistake." "One mistake?" Maya asked. "You've had 3 sexual harassment complaints buried in your file, Richard. You've had 5 reports of insubordination regarding checklist procedures. Today wasn't a mistake. It was a finale." "I was stressed," Sterling pleaded. "The weather, the delays, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm not a racist, I have friends who are—" Maya held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop. You're embarrassing yourself." Sterling's face twisted. "You think you've won? You're a kid. You'll run this company into the ground in 6 months, and when you do, I'll be laughing. You need men like me to fly these planes." "That's where you're wrong, Richard," Maya said, stepping closer. "We don't need cowboys. We need professionals. And you haven't been a professional in a long time." She reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. She handed it to him. "What is this?" Sterling asked, his hands shaking. "It's a letter from our legal department," Maya said. "It informs you that Horizon Global is suing you for the recovery of the $4 million we lost during today's ground stop. We're citing willful negligence and breach of command. We're going to take the pension. We're going to take the boat. We might even take the house." Sterling dropped the envelope. You can't do that." "I have the best lawyers in the world," Maya said simply. "And I have the video evidence. Good luck, Mr. Sterling. You're going to need it." She turned her back on him. "Maya," he screamed after her. "Maya, you be—" Officer Miller stepped in, shoving Sterling against the concrete pillar. "That's enough, sir. Get in the car." As Maya walked back toward the terminal, she didn't look back. She heard the click of handcuffs. It was the sweetest sound she had ever heard. The boardroom of Horizon Global looked different. The heavy mahogany table was gone, replaced by sleek modern glass. The windows were open, letting in the sunlight. Maya Vance sat at the head of the table. She wasn't wearing a hoodie today. She was wearing a tailored blazer, but she still wore her Converse sneakers. It was a reminder, to herself and to everyone else. "Quarterly earnings are up 15%, the CFO reported, looking at the charts on the screen. "Customer satisfaction scores are the highest in the industry. The New Horizon rebranding campaign is a massive success. People are specifically booking us because of the safety transparency." Maya nodded. "And the diversity scholarship program for pilots. Fully funded," the HR director said. "We have 500 cadets enrolled. We're getting applicants from neighborhoods we never reached before. You changed the face of the industry, Maya." Maya smiled. "We changed it. I just opened the door." The meeting adjourned. As the executives filed out, Maya stayed behind to check her emails. One notification caught her eye. It was a Google alert she had set up months ago. Key phrase, Richard Sterling. She clicked the link. It wasn't a news article. It was a public docket from a bankruptcy court in Florida, in Marie Richard Sterling. Status finalized. Assets liquidated, residential property. Marine vessel The Sky King, 401k Holdings. Maya scrolled down. There was a second link, a small local news story from a town in rural Florida. Local shuttle driver fired after altercation with passenger. Former airline pilot Richard Sterling, 62. was terminated from his position as a shuttle bus driver for the Sunnyside Retirement Home yesterday. Witnesses say Sterling became verbally abusive toward an elderly resident who took too long to board the bus. This is Sterling's third termination in 6 months. When asked for comment, the retirement home director stated, "We have a zero-tolerance policy for rudeness." Maya read it twice. He had lost the skies. Then he had lost the road. He was a man who demanded respect without giving it, and the world had finally decided to stop paying the bill. His wife had filed for divorce 3 days after the viral video she apparently didn't want to be married to the face of racism. His children had stopped speaking to him to protect their own careers. He was alone. He was broke. And he was grounded forever. Maya closed the laptop. She walked to the window and looked out at the airfield. A Horizon 787 was lifting off the runway, its wings flexing upward as it caught the wind. It roared into the sky, climbing higher and higher, piercing the clouds. She touched the glass. "Fly safe," she whispered. She picked up her bag and walked out of the office. She had a plane to catch, and this time nobody was going to stop her from sitting in seat 1A. And that is how the arrogance of one man destroyed his life and saved an airline. Captain Sterling thought his stripes gave him the right to judge, to bully, and to endanger. He learned the hard way that in the modern world, power doesn't belong to the people with the titles, it belongs to the people with the truth. Sterling is currently living in a rented studio apartment, unhired and unhirable, while Maya Vance continues to lead Horizon into a new golden age. It's a brutal lesson in karma when you try to clip someone's wings. Make sure you check who owns the airport first. What would you have done if you were in Maya's shoes? Would you have sued him for everything, or was the public humiliation enough? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of high-flying justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about entitled people getting exactly what they deserve. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind. You never know who you're talking to.